brought you to New Haven, Timo?
Essentially fear.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, because objectively speaking, there are some things wrong with me being spastic, being autistic, so I had very low self-esteem at some point, so I thought, well, what can I do, what can I achieve that would be so great, so shocking, so amazing, that nobody would be able to pound that into the ground, nobody would be able to make it smaller. I thought, well, attending a world-class college might do the trick. So I started looking at US colleges. And I was fortunate enough to come to Yale.
And it impressed you.
That's one way of putting it. I mean,
Yeah.
it was very emotional. It took me all of 5 seconds to fall very, very deeply in love. It's such a beautiful place to behold. I mean, it gives completely new meaning to the phrase, conducive to learning. If only to be able to study in such beautiful buildings, world-class faculties, all the facilities you could ever dream of, should be tremendous on it.
So it was awe-inspiring for you when you saw it.
Of course it is. I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen the campus, you've visited it. I mean, just eating a sandwich opposite Harkness Tower, just looking at it, you cannot not be impressed.
Yeah,
It hits home.
yeah,
At least to me it does.
yeah.
I'm very sensitive to those kinds of things.
Now, the thing, obviously, the thing that, I mean, there's so many things that unite us, but I think when Val and I started writing this and this movie, Aaron's Light, which is fashioned after you, you're the inspiration for it, after the character Aaron who has autism, it was because there was some need, we thought, for the world to understand what people with special needs bring to the world. Also for people with special needs to have an entree into an industry that doesn't really necessarily employ or welcome them on stage or behind stage. And it got us thinking about our own disabilities and, you know, what are the benefits, what are the awful things about them. And so, you know, so I know I've asked you that, Timo, but I gotta say, I don't remember last visit you going into as much detail as you did this visit, and I thought, wow, because you're very clear and articulate about what the benefits of having Asperger's are and what the deficits are. But what are they? What are the benefits and what are the things that make it really difficult?
Well, what makes it difficult is the fact that having Asperger's is, to put it bluntly, it's a rather mild form of autism. So, because of the fact that I have a rather mild form, it's important for me to actually belong to the world. Someone who has classical autism won't care. He will be faced so inwardly, he doesn't care about the fact that he's different, so it won't faze him.
It's a good point. I
Yeah.
never thought of that.
Having Asperger's means that you're constantly like walking on a tightrope, you know, trying to belong whilst knowing perfectly well that you never can actually conform to the standard people seem to desire of you. Which sucks because every time, at every turn, you fall short. You're never able to, you know, for example, understand subtle kinds of sarcasm, humor, it's difficult. So that sucks. And well, thankfully I have a rather good memory, so I store situations and I think, well, I've been through this one before, so I think this is the appropriate response. So I've grown tremendously. So I rarely make huge mistakes anymore. But if I do, like I told you with the mood court disaster, I can now say, alright, it was a bad call and it happens, I'm not perfect, I can now forgive myself. Whereas when I was younger, I was very tough on myself, held myself to an impossible standard. So now that I've mellowed out a little bit and accepted the fact that I will probably never be able to conform, it's not so much a problem anymore. Right now I'm just thoroughly enjoying the benefits, such as being able to quote the grades when I want to, and well, the memory doesn't hurt, and I'm a tad more distant from my emotions, so I rarely ever really get tangled up, you know, and keep a cool head. I think Asperger's is fun to have.
That's interesting. What did you feel when you learned that we had developed a character with you in mind, loosely based on you and inspired by you? What did that feel like?
I can only say I'm tremendously flattered. I mean, it's just little old me. I mean, that's the funny thing. You know, most people, or well, not most people, but some people come up to me and say, gee, the adversity you have to deal with, the stuff you're able to do despite your circumstances, it's amazing. And I'm like, no, this is just my life. It's circumstance I have to deal with. For me, it is normality. So it's tough for me to fathom that people, or anyone for that matter, can be somewhat impressed by what I've been able to accomplish in my life. So yeah, I'm tremendously honored, but quite flabbergasted. Yeah.
Have you, I mean, this was along the lines of an earlier question and just something I forget to ask you, but I think Mike, Val, and I would answer this maybe similarly, but have you ever had to deal with loneliness?
Of course.
Has it been, do you think it was primarily because of that disconnect, or feeling like you're not getting it fast enough, or people aren't quite on your wavelength, or?
Like I said, I used to be very, very, very strict to myself. I used to just want to get this. I'm tremendously book smart, so why can't I get this right? You can't learn the social mores from books, so it took me a huge amount of time to just come to grips with myself and say, alright, you're gonna make a bad call from time to time, but I never, or almost never, you folks have done a tremendous job, I rarely feel that I ever really belong somewhere, because I will almost always have to translate to other people where I'm coming from. I mean, even immediate family. So, of course, that disconnect has its reasons, but it's there. And unfortunately, I will almost always have to explain myself. Like, for example, if I pay a compliment to someone and they don't register that that's what I meant, and they're like, you're being really offensive. That hurts. So I would have to explain, and you know, I'm sorry, didn't mean it this way, but I meant it such and such. Most of the time they will pick up on my initial meaning, but sometimes it's just tiresome to always have to explain. And it's just something I accept now, because it will never end. I'm simply wired differently than most people, so it's my problem to deal with. But sure, it does get lonely sometimes. I mean, I have some friends with Asperger's and other forms of autism, and when I'm with them, it's tremendously therapeutic. It's like getting into a warm bed. Most people with autism, they could really truly be my brothers and sisters. They will intuitively get where I'm coming from. It's just, it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. Makes you feel like
you're not alone.
I really am part of this wicked world. It feels wonderful. And do you remember, I wrote you guys an email about Aaron. I said he's based on some of the finest people I know.